I never expected to see her again. Not after 5 years. Not after all the pain, the fights, the bitter words thrown like knives between us. Yet there she was, standing at my door, her silhouette framed by the dim glow of the streetlight. It was past midnight. I had just finished a long shift at the precinct, poured myself a drink, and was ready to let sleep claim me when the knock came. Soft, hesitant. The kind of knock that carried ghosts with it. I opened the door, and there she stood. Isabel, my ex-wife. The woman who had walked out of my life 5 years ago without a second glance. She looked different, older perhaps, or maybe just worn down by life. But those emerald eyes of hers, sharp, calculating, always hiding something, hadn't changed. "Hello, James." Her voice was quiet but steady. I didn't reply. I just stared at her, waiting for an explanation. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Why?" My voice was cold, too cold, but she had earned that. She exhaled sharply. "Because I need your help." And just like that, the past came crashing into the present. Chapter 2. The past is never really gone. I let her in, not because I forgave her, but because I was too damn curious. She stepped inside my apartment, taking in the room with the same sharp gaze she used to dissect crime scenes when we worked together. That's how we met. Both detectives, both driven, both too stubborn for our own good. The job had brought us together, but it also tore us apart. She walked toward the window, staring out at the city. "I know I have no right to be here," she admitted. "But I had nowhere else to go." I scoffed. "That's hard to believe." Her lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're still the same." I set my drink down, arms crossed. "Cut to the chase, Isabel." "What do you want?" She turned to me then, her face unreadable. "Someone is trying to kill me." Silence, heavy, thick. I almost laughed. "Is that supposed to be a joke?" Her eyes darkened. "Do I look like I'm joking?" She didn't, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. Chapter 3. The Shadows. We can't escape. She told me everything, or at least what she claimed was everything. After our divorce, she moved to Chicago, started working private security. High-end clients, corporate secrets, the kind of stuff that made enemies. A week ago, someone tried to run her off the road. Then, 2 nights ago, her apartment was broken into. No signs of theft, just someone sending a message. And tonight she came back to me. "You still think like a cop," she said. "You know how these people work. I need you, James." I studied her. Isabel was never one to ask for help. If she was here, it meant she was desperate or lying. "You should go to the police," I said. She shook her head. "I can't. I don't know who to trust." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Why the hell should I help you after everything?" She hesitated. "Because I never stopped loving you." That was the first lie of the night. And yet, against all logic, against all the old wounds, I found myself saying, "Tell me everything, from the beginning." Chapter 4. The deeper we dig. The more I listened, the worse it got. A client of hers, a tech CEO, had disappeared. No ransom. No demands. Just gone. And Isabel? She had been the last person to see him alive. "Let me guess," I said. "You were hired to protect him, but you started digging too deep." She gave a small nod. "Exactly." "Who's after you?" "I don't know." I exhaled. "Jesus, Isabel." Then something hit me. Something that didn't sit right. "If someone wants you dead, why aren't you already?" She blinked. "What?" I leaned forward. "They had a chance to kill you twice, but they didn't. They're toying with you. Why?" Her face paled. I could see the moment she realized I was right. And then, another knock at the door. We both froze. Isabel's hand moved to the gun at her waist. I grabbed mine from the table, a voice from the other side. "Detective Carter, we need to talk." Isabel's grip tightened on her gun. "James, do not open that door." Chapter 5. The truth we run from, but it was too late. Because I knew that voice. I unlocked the door, keeping my gun low. Standing there were two men in dark suits. One flashed a badge, FBI. The other, the missing tech CEO. The man Isabel claimed had disappeared, except he wasn't missing. He was alive. And he was looking right at her. "Hello, Isabel," he said. "We need to talk about the things you've been hiding." I turned to her. Her face was stone. But in her eyes I saw it. The secret. The real reason she was here, I had just let a liar back into my life. And the worst part? I still wasn't sure if I wanted her to leave. To be continued. The air in my apartment turned suffocating. Isabel's grip on her gun never wavered. Her green eyes darted between me and the so-called missing CEO, a man I now knew as Daniel Rook. Billionaire, tech mogul, and apparently very much alive. "You look surprised, Isabel," Rook said, stepping forward, hands casually in his pockets. "Did you really think I was dead?" I watched her carefully. A good detective reads body language, and right now Isabel's shoulders were too tense, her breathing too controlled. She had expected something, but not this. "I don't know what game you're playing, Rook," she said evenly. "But I saw your car explode. If you're standing here, it means someone wanted me to think you were dead." Rook chuckled. "Clever. Girl?" He turned to me. "Detective Carter, are you helping her?" I hesitated, because honestly, I had no damn clue what I was doing. Before I could answer, the FBI agent spoke up. "We need both of you to come with us, now." I didn't move. "Why?" The agent's jaw tightened. "Because you're standing next to a fugitive." I turned to Isabel. She didn't deny it. Chapter 7. The Woman I Thought I Knew. We ended. Up in a cold, dimly lit FBI office downtown. No handcuffs, no formal charges, yet. But the atmosphere screamed, "We own you now." Isabel and I sat across from Agent Miller, a middle-aged Fed with a face like carved stone. Rook leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching us like a cat watches a wounded bird. Miller tossed a file onto the table. "Isabel Rowan, former NYPD detective. After your divorce, you went private. 5 years later, you're working for Daniel Rook. But instead of protecting him, you betrayed him." I looked at Isabel. "That true?" She didn't answer. Miller continued. 3 months ago, Rook came to us, claiming someone in his company was trying to kill him. We started digging, and found something worse. There's a leak. High-level classified tech is being sold on the black market. And guess whose name came up? He slid a photograph across the table. It was Isabel, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. "Who's that?" I asked. Isabel's lips parted slightly. A flicker of something, fear? No. Regret. Miller answered for her. "That's Adrian Vega, arms dealer, black market kingpin, the last person Rook's stolen tech was traced to." Rook sighed dramatically. "Imagine my disappointment. I hire a bodyguard and she sells me out." I turned to Isabel. "Tell me it's not true." She met my eyes. And for the first time, I saw something I never expected from her. Guilt. I can't. Chapter 8. The Truth. That Burns Rook smirked. "So what now, Carter? Still want to protect your ex-wife?" I had no answer, because the Isabel I knew, the one I loved, the one I hated, was smart. She played by her own rules, but she was never dirty, never a traitor. Something wasn't adding up. I looked at Miller. "If she's guilty, why isn't she in cuffs?" Miller exhaled through his nose. Because we need her. Vega's still out there. The only way to get him is through her. I scoffed. So you're using her as bait? No, Rook corrected. As leverage. Miller leaned forward. She's not going free, Carter. The only question is whether she cooperates or disappears. The implication was clear. I turned to Isabel. And what do you want? For the first time, she looked vulnerable. I want to fix this. I sighed. Then tell me the truth. All of it. And finally, she did. Chapter 9. The Betrayal. That wasn't. She had been investigating Vega for months. When Rook hired her, she started noticing discrepancies, missing shipments, encrypted messages that led back to Vega's network. But when she tried to warn Rook, she was shut down. That's when she realized someone inside Rook's company was working with Vega. I didn't steal anything, she said. But when I got too close, someone set me up. They faked Rook's death and made me the scapegoat. Miller narrowed his eyes. If that's true, why run? She clenched her jaw. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me. Silence. I turned to Rook. If she's lying, why keep her alive? Rook smirked. Because whether she's guilty or not, Vega wants her. My stomach turned. Miller nodded. That's why we need her. Vega will come for her, and when he does, we take him. Down. I exhaled. This is a setup. Isabel's expression darkened. A death trap. Miller didn't deny it. Rook checked his watch. So, Carter, you in? I looked at Isabel, at the woman I had loved, lost, and now maybe trusted again, and then I made the worst decision of my life. I'm in. To be continued. 2 nights later, I found myself in a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city, watching Isabel sip whiskey like it was her last drink on earth. She sat across from me in the safe house the FBI had provided, her movements restless. She hated being trapped. Always had. They're using me as bait, she muttered. I leaned back against the worn-out couch, swirling my own drink. Yeah, and you're letting them, she scoffed. Like I have a choice. The plan was simple. Leak word that Isabel had resurfaced. Let Vega's men come sniffing. Follow the trail, and when he finally showed his face, we'd be waiting. A perfect little trap. Only problem? Vega wasn't an idiot, and neither was Isabel. You think he'll come for you himself? I asked. She shook her head. No. He'll send someone first, someone we won't expect. I studied her. You sound sure. Her grip tightened on the glass. Because that's what I would do. That's when I realized she wasn't just nervous, she was scared. And that scared me more than anything. Chapter 11. The visitor. It happened at 3:14 a.m. I was dozing in a chair, gun in my lap, when I heard it. Soft footsteps outside the door, my eyes snapped open. Isabel was already awake, her own gun raised. Knock. 3 slow taps. She stiffened. That's not them. I moved toward the door, gun steady. Then who the hell is it? She didn't answer. I peered through the peephole. A woman stood there, cloaked in shadows. Tall, blonde. A scar ran down her cheek, her blue eyes sharp as broken glass. She wasn't FBI. She wasn't Vega's typical muscle. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain locked. Who the hell are you? She smiled, a cold, knowing smile. Isabel knows, she said. I turned to Isabel. Her face had gone pale. She whispered one word. Serena? And just like that, the past crashed into the present. Chapter 12. The woman from another life. I let the chain slide off, pushing the door open. Serena stepped inside, moving with the kind of confidence that came from being dangerous. I locked eyes with Isabel. You want to tell me who she is? Isabel's voice was tight. An old friend. Serena chuckled. That's one way to put it. I didn't like this. The tension between them felt like a blade at my throat. Serena pulled out a flash drive, tossing it onto the table. "You're walking into a setup." I frowned. "We know it's a setup." Serena shook her head. "Not the one you think. Vega's not after Isabel." I stiffened. "Then who?" She glanced at me. "You?" Silence. I laughed, a bitter, humorless thing. "That's cute. I've never met Vega in my life." Serena sat down, crossing her legs. "Doesn't matter. He doesn't want you dead, Carter. He wants you dirty." Isabel's voice was quiet. "He's framing you," Serena nodded. "He already has. He's tied you to offshore accounts, falsified evidence, and linked you to a very ugly money trail." She leaned forward. "When this sting goes down, it won't be Isabel they arrest. It'll be you." I felt the weight of her words settle in my chest. Miller, Rook, the FBI. They were about to walk me into a burning building, and I never saw it coming. Chapter 13. The Burning Fuse. I stared at the flash drive on the table. If what Serena was saying was true, I had about 6 hours before my whole life burned to the ground. I turned to Isabel. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" She didn't deny it. I exhaled. "Son of a bitch." Serena stood. "We need to move. Now." I looked between the two of them. Two women from two different parts of my life. One I had loved, one I didn't trust. But both were my only chance of surviving this. I grabbed my gun. "Let's go." And just like that, I became the hunted to be continued. We drove in silence. Rain lashed against the windshield, the city lights smearing across the glass like a bad dream. I was gripping the steering wheel too tight, but my mind was spinning. The FBI was about to hang me out to dry. Vega had framed me for crimes I hadn't committed. And Isabel, my ex-wife, my biggest regret, was tangled in this mess deeper than she'd admitted. Serena sat in the back seat, casually checking her gun like we weren't driving straight into hell. "You're too quiet, Carter," she said. "That usually means a man is about to make a very stupid decision." I didn't take my eyes off the road. "Maybe I just don't like being framed for a federal crime," she smirked. "Then you better start liking it. Because by sunrise, the FBI is going to have your name on every wanted list in the country." Isabel was watching me from the passenger seat. I could feel her gaze like a weight on my chest. "We can fix this," she said. I scoffed. "You think we can fix this? There's a difference." She hesitated. "Do you trust me?" That was the question, wasn't it? 5 years ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, I didn't answer. Chapter 15. The Setup. We pulled into an underground parking garage beneath an abandoned office building, the kind of place where people disappeared without a trace. Serena led the way, moving like a shadow. Isabel followed, her posture tense. We reached a small, dust-covered office. Serena booted up an old laptop and plugged in the flash drive. A series of encrypted files flickered onto the screen. She tapped a few keys, then turned the laptop toward me. "Take a good look, Carter. This is your death sentence," I scanned. The files. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, a detailed money trail leading straight to me. It looked airtight. Someone had been planning this for a long time. I clenched my jaw. How the hell did they make this look so real? Serena leaned against the desk. "Vega has people in high places. He knew the FBI was sniffing around, so he needed a fall guy. Someone clean, someone respectable, someone stupid enough to chase after his ex-wife." I ran a hand down my face. "So this was the plan all along? Frame me, let the FBI take me down, and Vega walks free?" Isabel spoke up. "No, there's more." She pointed at a file labeled Omega Directive. "This isn't just about you. Vega is planning something bigger." Serena clicked on the file, a loading screen, a progress bar, and then a live video feed appeared. Chapter 16. The Man in the Shadows. The video showed a man sitting in a high-rise office overlooking the city. He was talking on the phone, his voice calm, almost amused. It was Vega. "Everything is in motion," he was saying. "Carter will take the fall. The FBI is already in position, and by the time they realize the truth, it'll be too late." My stomach turned to stone. Serena cursed under her breath. "They're moving now." Isabel's face was unreadable. "What's his endgame?" Serena rewound the video, then froze the screen. On Vega's desk was a blueprint, not for a building, for a server farm. I frowned. "What the hell is that?" Serena exhaled. "Not just any server farm. That's a federal data center. If Vega gets inside, he'll have access to intelligence files, witness protection records, everything." Isabel's voice was quiet. "He's erasing himself," Serena nodded. "And by the time the FBI realizes you weren't the real target, Vega will have disappeared off the face of the earth." Silence. Then I grabbed my gun. Serena raised an eyebrow. "Where are you going?" I checked the clip, then slid the gun into my holster. "To stop him." Chapter 17. The Last Gamble. We didn't have time for a perfect plan. We only had one shot. Serena worked fast, hacking into the FBI's encrypted comms. "They're already deploying teams," she said. "They think they're taking you down, but really they're clearing the way for Vega." I turned to Isabel. "You in?" She smirked. "Wasn't this my mess to begin with?" I nodded. "Then let's finish it." Serena grabbed her gear. "You two are insane." I smiled. "Welcome to the club." Then we stepped into the night, ready to burn it all down. To be continued. We had 40 minutes. Vega's plan was already in motion, and the FBI was unwittingly clearing his path. If we didn't move fast, the bastard would erase himself from every database and vanish like a ghost. We split up. Serena hacked into the FBI's systems from a safe house, feeding us live updates. Isabel and I took the back entrance to the federal data center, moving fast, keeping low. The city was alive with sirens, agents swarming the streets, searching for me. "This is insane," I muttered as we ducked behind a security van. Isabel smirked. "You used to like insane." "I used to like you," I shot back. "And look how that turned out." She winced, just for a second. Then she checked her gun. "We'll deal with that later." "Will we?" She didn't answer. "Because right." Then Serena's voice crackled in our earpieces. "We have a problem," she said. "Vega's already inside." Chapter 19. The Shadow in the System. We moved fast, cutting through the side entrance with stolen clearance badges. Inside, the data center was a labyrinth of humming servers and security cameras. Serena guided us through. "Two guards in the next hallway. Take them out quiet." I nodded. Isabel went left, I went right. 2 muffled gunshots. The guards crumpled. We stepped over them and kept moving. The deeper we went, the colder it got. Then, voices ahead. We pressed against the wall. Vega stood in the middle of the server room, flanked by 2 men in tactical gear. A tech specialist was frantically typing at a terminal. "Status?" Vega asked. The tech wiped sweat from his brow. 5 minutes. After that, every trace of your existence is gone." Vega smiled. "Perfect." I glanced at Isabel. "We have to move now." She nodded. "I'll take the tech. You handle Vega." Serena's voice came through. "Heads up, boys. FBI is 30 seconds out. If you don't end this now, we're all screwed." No pressure. Chapter 20. The Devil's Bargain. We burst into the room. Everything happened fast. Isabel took out the tech with a single shot. To the leg. He screamed, collapsing onto the floor. The 2 guards spun, raising their weapons. I dropped the first with a bullet between the eyes. Isabel took the second. That left Vega. He didn't run. He just stood there, watching me, smiling. Like he knew something I didn't. "Carter," he said smoothly. "You should have walked away." I leveled my gun at him. "You should have stayed dead." He chuckled. And here I thought you wanted to clear your name. He gestured toward the terminal. The countdown on the screen read 0001:30. Shut. It down, I ordered. Vega shook his head. I could, but why would I? If I go down, Carter, you go down with me. He wasn't bluffing. If the FBI stormed in now, they'd still see me as the fall guy. Vega had planned this too well. I glanced at Isabel. She understood. In one swift motion, she aimed her gun and shot the terminal. The screen exploded in sparks. The countdown froze. Vega's smirk disappeared. You idiots, he snarled. You have no idea what you've just done? I grinned. Yeah, well, improvising was always my thing. And that's when the FBI stormed in. Chapter 21. The end of the game agents poured into the room, guns raised. Vega didn't fight. He just sighed, raising his hands as they swarmed him. Miller stepped through the chaos, glaring at me. You're a real pain in the ass, Carter, I shrugged. You're welcome. Vega was dragged away, cursing under his breath. The evidence Serena leaked would make sure he never saw daylight again. The FBI agents turned to me. Miller exhaled. So what the hell do we do with you? I smirked. How about a thank you? Miller sighed. How about I don't shoot you? I looked at Isabel. And her? Miller glanced at her, then at me. She walks, but if she screws up again, I'm putting you in cuffs. Isabel smiled. I'll behave. I wasn't so sure about that. Epilogue. Some things never change. 2 days later, the city felt different, quieter, cleaner, like the storm had finally passed. I sat in my apartment nursing a drink when the knock came. I opened the door. Isabel stood there, hands in her pockets, that old smirk on her lips. Thought I'd never see you again, I said. She shrugged. You could have walked away. I studied her. So could you. A pause. Then she leaned in. Want to find out what happens if we don't? I exhaled. I was a detective. I knew better than to repeat my mistakes. But damn it, some mistakes were worth making twice. I stepped aside. She walked in. And just like that, it all began again. The end. It had been 6 months since Vega went down. 6 months since Isabel walked back into my life. I should have known peace wouldn't last. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. No return address. Just a simple white envelope slipped under my apartment. Door inside, a single sheet of paper. Carter, if you're reading this, I'm already dead. But there's something you missed. Something bigger. Meet me where it all began. Midnight. Come alone. No name, no signature. But I recognized the handwriting. Vega. Stared at the letter, my pulse ticking up. The bastard had been rotting in federal custody for months. There was no way he was writing me love notes from a concrete cell, unless someone was keeping his secrets alive. Chapter 2. The Return of Isabel. I found Isabel in a hotel bar, nursing a whiskey and looking like trouble wrapped in silk. She saw the letter in my hand before I even spoke. Already, she said, smirking. I thought we'd get at least a year before the past came knocking. I slid the paper across the table. She read it, her expression darkening. This is a trap, she said. Of course it's a trap. She leaned back. Then why are we going? I exhaled. Because if Vega's still pulling strings from the grave, I need to know who's holding them. She tilted her glass toward me. Then let's dance. Chapter 3. Midnight Meeting. We arrived at the old warehouse where I first arrested Vega years ago. The place was a skeleton now, empty, crumbling, forgotten, except for the single light flickering inside. Someone was waiting. Isabel and I moved cautiously, guns drawn. The air smelled like dust and old lies. Then we saw him. A man stood in the center of the room, his hands raised. Early 50s, sharp suit, eyes that had seen too much. "Carter," he said. "It's been a long time." I froze. Isabel cursed, under her breath, because we knew him, Agent Jonathan Marks, FBI, and very, very dead. At least that's what we'd been told. Agent Jonathan Marks had been declared dead 3 years ago, shot twice in the chest during an undercover operation gone wrong. And yet, here he was, standing, breathing, smirking like he had never left. I kept my gun leveled at him. "Last time I checked, corpses don't send letters," Marks chuckled. "And last time I checked, detectives don't take down international crime syndicates single-handedly. But here we are." Isabel's voice was sharp. "You faked your death." Marks spread his hands. "More like the FBI did it for me. A necessary illusion. I wasn't buying it. Why are you here, Marks? And what does this have to do with Vega?" His smirk faded. He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a small USB drive. He tossed it onto a nearby crate. "Because you didn't kill the beast, Carter," he said. "You just cut off one head." I glanced at Isabel. She didn't like this any more than I did. Marks stepped closer. "Vega wasn't the top of the food chain. He was a lieutenant, a glorified middleman. The real power, the one calling the shots, he's still out there." I clenched my jaw. "Who?" Marks smiled grimly. "Ever heard of the Ashen Order?" Isabel stiffened. That told me everything. I turned to her. "You know them," she exhaled. "I worked for them." Chapter 5. The name in the dark, the Ashen Order. I had heard whispers, the kind of bedtime stories criminals told each other to scare themselves straight. A secretive network, the kind that didn't just run crime, but shaped it. A hidden hand behind global power struggles, laundering money for governments, selling secrets to the highest bidder. If Vega was just their pawn, we had only scratched the surface. I picked up the USB drive. "What's on here?" Marks's expression turned grave. "Proof that Vega wasn't working alone. Proof that someone inside the FBI has been feeding them intel. And proof that they know exactly who you are, Carter." The air in the room grew heavier. I pocketed the drive. "So what's your play, Marks?" he sighed. "I need you to help me burn them down," I scoffed. "You faked your death once. You really think I trust you?" "No," he admitted, "but I think you want answers. And I know you don't like loose ends." I looked at Isabel. She was unreadable. Then I turned back to Marks. "Fine," I said. "We'll play. But if you screw us," Marks smirked. "You'll kill me?" He chuckled. "You should have done that 3 years ago." Chapter 6. The first move. An hour later, we sat in an abandoned loft, staring at the decrypted files on the USB. It was worse than I thought. The Ashen Order had infiltrated everything: law enforcement, intelligence agencies, global banks. This wasn't just corruption. It was a shadow empire. One name stood out: Alexander Graves, a billionaire, a philanthropist, a man who had donated millions to law enforcement agencies across the world, and apparently the one pulling the strings. Exhaled. "How do we find him?" Marks leaned forward. "We don't. We make him find us." I frowned. "And how do we do that?" Isabel smiled. "We steal from him." To be continued. What do you think? Want the stakes even higher? Stealing from Alexander Graves wasn't just suicidal, it was damn near impossible. The man wasn't just rich, he was untouchable. His fortune was protected by a fortress of digital security, offshore accounts, and enough political influence to make governments kneel, but Isabel had that look in her eye. The one that said she already had a plan. I sighed. "Tell me this isn't as insane as it sounds." She smirked. "Oh, it's way worse." Marks leaned forward. "How much worse?" She slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was a blueprint. A vault, Graves' private vault, built into a secure wing of his estate, under biometric lock, protected by an AI-driven security system. You're serious, I muttered. Isabel nodded. Graves keeps physical backups of all his transactions, ledgers, hard drives, blackmail material. She tapped the screen. If we get inside that vault, we own him. Marks exhaled. We'd have to break into the most secure estate on the East Coast. I rubbed my temples. We don't even know where the damn vault is in the house. Isabel smirked. Oh, but we do. I looked at her. How? She hesitated. Then quietly she said, because I've been inside before. Chapter 8. Isabel's Secret Silence. Marks and I exchanged a glance. I folded my arms. You want to explain that? She exhaled, avoiding my gaze. A long time ago, before we met, I worked with the Ashen Order. Graves trusted me. I was one of his... She hesitated. I was useful to him. I clenched my jaw. Useful how? She didn't answer. That told me everything. Marks chuckled dryly. Oh, this just keeps getting better. I shook my head. Let me guess. Graves doesn't know you're alive? Not yet, she admitted. Which is why we have one shot at this. I sighed. Do I even want to know the plan? She grinned. We crash his charity gala. Marks groaned. I'm starting to miss being dead. Chapter 9. The Devil's Party Graves was hosting a charity gala in 3 nights. The guest list included senators, CEOs, and enough criminals in designer suits to make Vegas look like a church. We had to blend in, get close, and find a way inside his private wing without setting off a security lockdown. No guns, no backup, just us, our wits, and a whole lot of luck. I adjusted my tux in the mirror. I look ridiculous. Isabel stepped up beside me, slipping on diamond earrings. You look expensive, I smirked. That's just another word for highly killable, she smiled. Then try not to die before we get inside. Marks walked in, looking uncomfortable in a black suit. If I get shot, I'm haunting both of you. I clapped his shoulder. We'll engrave that on your tombstone. Outside, the limousine was waiting. Inside, the city's most dangerous man was hosting a party, and if we weren't careful, we'd never leave alive. To be continued. How's that for raising the stakes? Want more twists? The gala was held at Blackthorn Manor, Graves' sprawling estate perched on the edge of the city. It was the kind of place that screamed old money and new sins. Marble floors, gold chandeliers, and security so tight that even breathing wrong might set off an alarm. We walked in like we belonged. Isabel, draped in a black gown that could make a priest reconsider his vows, slipped her arm through mine. Marks trailed behind us, blending into the crowd. The place was packed, senators laughing, too loudly, CEOs whispering deals behind champagne glasses. And in the middle of it all, Alexander Graves, tall, silver-haired, the kind of man who radiated power without trying. He was shaking hands, smiling, playing the role of a perfect philanthropist. I leaned toward Isabel. You sure he won't recognize you? She didn't answer, which meant she wasn't sure at all. Chapter 11. The first move. We needed a way into his private wing. That was where the vault was, where Graves kept the secrets that could burn his empire to the ground. But getting in wasn't the problem. Getting out alive was, Marks whispered into our earpieces. Security's thick. Cameras on every hall, key cards on every door. I sipped my whiskey. Then we need someone to open a door for us. Isabel smirked. Then we crashed the VIP list. She scanned the room. Then her gaze locked onto Damian Cross, a billionaire, a crook, and one of Graves' closest business partners. She turned to me. How's your pickpocketing? I grinned. Smooth as ever. Chapter 12. The key to the Kingdom Cross was drunk. Laughing too hard, flashing his expensive watch, perfect. I moved through the crowd, bumping into him just enough to make him spill his drink. "Ah, hell," he grumbled. "Sorry, friend," I said smoothly, patting his shoulder. By the time I walked away, his VIP keycard was in my pocket. I slipped it to Isabel under the table. She arched a brow. "Impressive," I smirked. "I have my moments." Then Marks's voice cut in. "We have a problem." I stiffened. "What kind of problem?" Marks's voice was low. "Graves just made you." I turned, and sure enough, Graves was staring right at me. Chapter 13. The game begins. The room seemed to shrink. Graves smiled, but his eyes were sharp. He excused himself from a conversation and started walking toward me. Isabel whispered, "Do not panic." Too late. Graves reached us, extending a hand. "Detective Carter, isn't it?" I took it, keeping my grip firm. "Mr. Graves, didn't—" "No, I was on the guest list." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Neither did I. A test. I played along." "Big fan of your philanthropy work," Graves chuckled. "And I'm a big fan of men who know when to quit." I felt Isabel stiffen beside me. Graves's fingers tightened around mine. "You should leave, Carter." His voice was soft, deadly. "Before you end up like your old friend Vega." I didn't blink. "That a threat?" Graves smiled wider. "No, it's a warning." Then he turned and walked away. I exhaled. Isabel whispered, "We need to move now." Marks cut in. "Security's watching you. You have 5 minutes before they make a move." I nodded. "Then let's go steal from the devil." We had 5 minutes. Not nearly enough time, but it was all we had before Graves' security would start tightening around us. The keycard I'd swiped from Damian Cross had already unlocked the door to the private wing, and now it was just a matter of getting through the halls without attracting attention. Isabel led the way, her heels clicking on the marble floor like the ticking of a bomb. Marks followed closely behind, and I brought up the rear, keeping a sharp eye on the shifting guests and security cameras. We passed 2 guards, chatting idly. They didn't even look our way. The mansion was eerily quiet as we moved deeper into the heart of Graves's fortress, and the tension in the air thickened. We rounded a corner, and I saw it. The door. Behind it, the vault. Isabel checked her watch. 2 minutes. Marks pulled out a small device from his jacket. "I'll disable the cameras in the hall. You two handle the rest." I gave him a nod and moved to the door, Isabel right behind me. My hand trembled slightly as I slid the keycard into the reader, but I kept my breathing steady. The door clicked open. We stepped inside. Chapter 15. Secrets in the Dark. The room was exactly what I'd expected. Cold, clinical, and locked down tighter than a CIA facility. The vault was nestled in the back corner of the room, a huge steel door embedded into the wall, protected by layers of biometric sensors and a digital keypad. I cracked my knuckles. No pressure. Isabel gave me a knowing look, then turned to the vault. "I've done this before." I swallowed. I didn't ask her to explain. There was no time. She walked up to the keypad, typing in a string of codes before reaching. "For the biometric scanner," Marks's voice cut through our earpieces. "Cameras down. The guards are still on the other side of the hall, but that won't last long." I turned to Isabel. "You good?" Her fingers danced across the biometric sensor, her brow furrowing. The vault door buzzed and she cursed. "It's different than I remember." I glanced at the clock. "We don't have time for this." She nodded. "I know, but I need—" There was a soft click. The door to the vault opened. Isabel froze. "No way." Inside, stacked neatly on shelves, were hard drives. Lots of them. Ledgers, blueprints, contracts, all the evidence we needed to bring Graves down. But there was something else. A file, labeled simply, "Ashen Order, Final Phase." I grabbed it without hesitation, shoving it into my jacket. We've got what we need. But before we could step back, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Marks's voice crackled. Move. Now. Chapter 16. The chase. We bolted. We didn't even bother closing the vault door as we sprinted down the hall. A few turns. A couple of sharp corners. I glanced back. 2 guards appeared, guns drawn. Shit, Isabel hissed. We're not going to make it to the exit. I grabbed her wrist and yanked her forward. We don't need to. We just need a distraction. I swung around a corner, pulling a smoke grenade from my belt. I didn't wait. I tossed it down the hall, watching as it exploded into a thick cloud of gray smoke. The guards yelled. One of them fired. Isabel and I kept running fast. The air was thick with smoke, and I could barely see in front of me. But I knew the path. I had memorized every turn, every corner. Then, a shot rang out. I felt it more than I heard it. A sharp pain exploded in my side. My vision blurred for a second, but I kept running. Carter! Isabel screamed. I gritted my teeth, feeling the blood start to soak through my shirt. Keep going! We turned another corner, and there it was, the exit, the back door. Marks was already there, holding it open. We ran toward him. The guards were still shouting in the distance, but we were almost home free. Get in, Marks shouted. We dove through the door just as the first guard rounded the corner. Marks slammed the door behind us, and we were gone. Chapter 17. A Wounded Escape. We tumbled into the back of a waiting van. Isabel immediately pulled me toward her, inspecting the wound in my side. I winced. It's nothing. Just a scratch. Marks jumped into the front seat. We're not out of this yet. Graves knows we're coming for him. I barely heard him. I was focused on the file I had grabbed from the vault, the one labeled Ashen Order, Final Phase. My hands shook as I pulled it out, opening the file. Inside were pages of names, connections, deals, blackmail, and at the very center of it all, Alexander Graves himself. It wasn't just money and power. Graves had been selling influence, orchestrating wars, pulling the strings of world governments. He was at the center of everything, and if we didn't take him down now, we'd never have a chance. But the name at the bottom of the list stopped me cold. Director Miles Carter. My father's name. The van jerked to a stop, but I didn't move. I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the file, the name that sent a chill through my veins. Director Miles Carter, my father. I hadn't seen him in years. The man who'd built a career in law enforcement, and whose name had once been synonymous with integrity and honor, now somehow tangled in the web of the Ashen Order. How the hell is my father involved? I muttered, barely recognizing my own voice. Isabel looked at me, her eyes softening, but her voice was firm. Carter, we don't know the full story yet, but this, she gestured to the file in my hands, could be the key to everything. Marks, who had been unusually silent, spoke up from the front. If Graves is involved with your father, it's bigger than we thought. Miles Carter doesn't just bend the law, he makes the law. If he's on their payroll, he trailed off. Then, nothing is what it seems. I clenched my jaw. My father, someone I had always looked up to, had become an enigma to me. I'd left him behind years ago when I joined the force, and now it seemed I was walking into a nightmare of his own making. But there was no turning back. Not now. I flipped through the rest of the file, the weight of each revelation settling heavier on my chest. This wasn't just about taking down Graves anymore. This was about uncovering a system of corruption that ran deeper than anything I had ever imagined. And if my father was a part of it, where do we go from here? Isabel asked, cutting through my thoughts. I looked at her, then at Marks. The van had been silent for a while, parked in the shadows of an alley, but now it was time to make a decision. We need to see him, I said, my voice thick with determination. We need to go to my father. Isabel's eyes widened. Carter, we don't know if he's on their side or not. What if he— I don't care, I interrupted. We find him, and we get answers. Marks shook his head slowly. This is a bad idea. If he's involved with the Ashen Order, he could lead us straight into their trap. I didn't care. I needed to know. I needed to hear it from his mouth. Chapter 19. The Father's Shadow. We arrived at my father's home just before dawn. The house was as cold and imposing as I remembered, empty windows staring out like hollow eyes. I hadn't been here in years, and I had no idea what kind of man I'd be walking into. I turned to Isabel and Marks. Stay out of sight. I'll go alone. Marks opened his mouth to protest, but Isabel put a hand on his arm, silencing him. We'll be right here. Call us if anything goes wrong. I nodded, stepping out of the van. The front door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, everything was as sterile as it had been when I was a child. White walls, perfectly arranged furniture, the faint smell of old leather and dust. My father's office was upstairs, where I knew he'd be. He always worked late. Always. Ascended the stairs and hesitated at the door. I could hear the faint rustle of papers on the other side. His voice, low and methodical, was speaking into the phone. Yes, everything's in place. We'll move forward tomorrow. No one knows. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I pushed the door open, stepping inside without knocking. My father looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable. He was older now, his hair graying at the temples, but his eyes were still sharp, cutting through the years like they hadn't aged a day. Carter. His voice was clipped, formal. I didn't expect you to visit. I swallowed hard. I'm not here for a social call, Dad. I tossed the file onto the desk. What the hell is this? Why is your name on this list? What is the Ashen Order? His gaze flickered over the file, and then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped in front of him. You don't understand, Carter. This is bigger than you think. The Ashen Order— He paused, as if weighing his words. They control everything. I clenched my fists. So you're one of them? No, he said, his voice steady. But his eyes were pained. I'm not, but I've been trying to stop them for years. It's the only way to keep you safe. I stepped forward, the words burning in my chest. I've been safe? I spat. Is this why you left me in the dark? Why you abandoned me after everything we went through? I never abandoned you, Carter. His voice softened, a hint of regret creeping in. I did what I had to do. To protect you! And I'm still trying to protect you, but we're running out of time. They know we're coming for them. The room fell into a heavy silence. My mind spun. This wasn't how I had expected this conversation to go. My father wasn't the villain I had thought he was. He was tangled in this just as much as I was. Then help me take them down, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. My father stood slowly, his hands shaking slightly. I can't, Carter. The Ashen Order has too many strings. I stared at my father. The words he'd just spoken hung in the air like a heavy fog. His face, once a bastion of authority, was now a mask of regret and caution. You? I asked, voice thick with disbelief. You're the head of the Ashen Order? He nodded slowly. Not by choice, Carter. I never wanted to be the leader. I never wanted this life. But sometimes the only way to protect your family is to become the thing you fear the most. My stomach churned. I felt like the ground had just been ripped out from under me. My entire life, the ideals I had held on to, the reasons I became a cop, all of it felt like a lie. Why didn't you tell me? My voice was quiet, raw. He turned away, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the years had finally caught up with him. I tried, Carter. I tried to keep you away from this world. I thought you could be safe. free from it. But the Ashen Order doesn't let you go. It's everywhere. And if you try to leave, they make sure you regret it. I shook my head, struggling to wrap my mind around the reality that had just crashed down on me. So everything, my life, your career, all of it, was part of this game? No, he replied, turning back toward me, his eyes filled with sorrow. I did everything I could to protect you, but I was born into this. My father was part of the Order, and I was groomed to take his place. I tried to fight it, to make a difference, but you don't just walk away from something like this. I clenched my fists, feeling the blood pumping in my ears. And now? Now that they've gone too far? My father's gaze hardened. Now, it's too late. The Order has its claws in too deep. We can't just bring them down from the inside. The only way to destroy them is to take out the head, and that's me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You want me to kill you? His expression was grave. I don't want to die, Carter, but I'm the only one left who knows how to destroy it. They won't stop until they have control of everything. Your mother, your life, everything we've built, it's all been a lie. I looked at him, seeing the man who had always been my hero, the one who taught me everything I knew, now reduced to a broken shell of that person. If you're the leader, why haven't you just pulled the plug already? His eyes flickered with the weight of his decision. Because it's not that simple. If I make the wrong move, they'll come after you, after everyone we've ever known. They have eyes everywhere. If I die, they'll tear this world apart to keep their control. But if you can expose them, if you can take the evidence I've given you and bring it to light, you'll have a chance. We'll all have a chance. The cold realization settled in my chest like a stone. So what? I just become a part of the system to take down the system? He nodded. Exactly. You need to be the one to end it, not me. You've been on the outside, but you're right on the verge of the truth. All the pieces are here, but you need to finish it. You're the one who can expose it all. I didn't respond. My mind was racing, heart thumping in my chest. The life I knew, the world I had trusted, it was all a lie. Everything was a game, and I was trapped in the middle of it. Isabel's voice cut through the tension as she whispered into my earpiece. Carter, you need to make a choice. We're not far from Graves's compound. The file you have, it's all we need to take him down. But your father's telling us we're not just up against Graves anymore. I looked at my father. I need time. He nodded grimly. Time isn't something we have, Carter. But take what I've given you. The clock is ticking. Chapter 21. The Final Betrayal. The decision I had to make was no longer about stopping Graves. It was about stopping the very foundation of the world I thought I knew. The Ashen Order wasn't just a shadow organization. It was the root of corruption, pulling the strings of the world from behind the scenes. And my father, the man I had idolized, had been their puppet master. But I couldn't just walk away from this. I couldn't let my father's mistakes become my own. I had to finish it. I stood up, pulling the file from the desk. I'll do it, I said, my voice unwavering. I'll end this. My father reached out, his hand shaking. Be careful. The moment you expose them, there's no going back. The Order will come after you with everything they have. I know, I said, my voice hollow. But I'm not afraid anymore. I turned to leave. Isabel and Marks were waiting outside, but I had one more stop to make. Graves. I had to face him. I had to confront the monster I had been chasing for so long. As I stepped outside, I made the call. To Graves. The line rang once, twice. Then his voice, cool and collected, came through. Carter, you found what you're looking for, haven't you? I didn't hesitate. You're done, Graves. The Ashen Order is finished. There was a pause, then a chuckle. You think you've won, don't you? but you've just played into my hands." The mansion loomed ahead, its walls like a fortress designed not just to protect, but to intimidate. Every inch of it screamed power, control, and an unyielding desire to remain untouchable. It wasn't just graves that I was after anymore, it was everything this house represented. A system built on lies, manipulation, and blood. I turned to Isabel and Marks, who were flanking me as we approached the entrance. "Stay sharp," I murmured. "Once we go in, there's no turning back." Marks nodded, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by the focus of a man who knew what was at stake. Isabel gave me a determined look. Her eyes were hard, but I could see the flicker of fear hidden beneath the surface. The same fear I felt. We were walking into the heart of darkness. The front doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a marble foyer lined with portraits of Graves and his family, his wealth, his influence, his legacy. I took a deep breath and moved forward, feeling the weight of every step. We were going to expose him. We were going to expose them all. Chapter 24. The snake's lair. Graves didn't keep us waiting. His voice boomed through the intercom system, cutting through the tension that clung to the air. "You've made a mistake, Carter," he said, the words smooth and confident. "But I'll give you credit. You've come further than I expected." I moved quickly through the hallways, my heart pounding. Isabel and Marks followed, their steps synchronized with mine, their presence comforting yet unsettling. As we turned a corner, I saw him. Graves, standing at the top of a grand staircase, his hands casually resting on the railing. His expensive suit and cold, calculating eyes were a stark contrast to the warmth of the mansion's decor. It was a game to him. He wasn't afraid. "You don't have the power to take me down, Carter," Graves continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "I own everything, every person, every resource. You can't touch me." I clenched my jaw. "We'll see about that." I could feel Isabel's hand at my back, steadying me. Marks stepped forward, his stance ready for whatever came next. But I wasn't afraid anymore. This wasn't about power. It was about truth. And the truth had a way of toppling even the strongest empire. Graves smiled, slowly descending the stairs. "You don't even know what you're up against. The Ashen Order isn't just a group of men in dark corners. It's the foundation of this world. Its politics, its economy, its very future. You can't just bring it down." I wasn't listening anymore. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart, the sound of the fight I was about to have, the sound of the world shifting beneath our feet. I pulled the file from my jacket, holding it up. "I don't need to bring down the whole world. I just need to expose you, and I have everything I need to do that." Graves stopped at the bottom of the stairs, his smile widening. "You think that's all it takes? You think the evidence you have will bring me to my knees?" He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small device. With a swift motion, he pressed a button. The sound of a door unlocking echoed through the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. And then the people walked in. A dozen men and women, high-ranking officials, power brokers, and people I had once believed to be untouchable, stood before us. All of them were the Ashen Order. It wasn't just Graves. He had a network. And now they were here, standing between me and the truth. My heart skipped a beat. Isabel moved to my side, her eyes narrowing. "They were with him the whole time." Marks cursed under his breath, his hand on his gun. "We're surrounded!" Graves laughed softly, his voice full of arrogance. "You think you've uncovered something new, Carter? You've been a pawn in my game from the very beginning." I didn't back down. I couldn't. "It's over. The world's going to know the truth." Graves raised an eyebrow. "Is it?" In that moment, something clicked in my mind. All of this, Graves, the Order, the years of investigation, it had all led to one thing: the real mastermind behind everything. The truth I wasn't seeing. Chapter 25. The master's hand. Before I could react, a figure stepped out from, the shadows, and everything I had just learned shattered. It was my father. I froze. My heart stopped. He stepped forward, his cold eyes fixed on me. You thought you were alone in this, Carter? You thought you were taking down graves? You never stood a chance. The world spun. My breath caught in my throat. No, I whispered. No. You're with him. My father nodded, his face an emotionless mask. I've been with him all along. I had no choice. The Order's power is absolute. You can't fight it, son. You never could. I could feel Isabel's hand on my arm, her grip tight with concern. Carter, don't let him get to you. But I couldn't think. My father, my own father, was the final piece of the puzzle, the one who had orchestrated everything from behind the scenes. The room was deathly still. The cold, calculating faces of the Ashen Order stared at me, and I felt the weight of their collective gaze pressing in. Every movement I made felt like a tightrope walk between life and death. But there was no turning. Back now. I held my gun firmly, my finger lightly on the trigger, aimed at my father. The man who had raised me, who had shaped every part of my life, now stood across from me as the very thing I had sworn to destroy. You don't have to do this, my father said, his voice low and almost pleading. I've done what I've done to protect you, to protect everyone. I felt the bitterness rise in my throat. Protect me? I spat. You've destroyed everything. You've been lying to me my entire life. You've been playing a game with people's lives, and my voice broke, but I steadied myself. I won't let you do it anymore. Graves chuckled behind me, the sound mocking and rich with amusement. Carter, do you really think you can end all of this? You don't have the power, not like your father, not like the Order. I didn't take my eyes off my father, but I could feel the weight of Graves's words, the conviction that had fueled me all this time, the belief that I could tear this all down. It was starting to crumble. But then, I remembered the truth, the file, the pieces of the puzzle that had led me here, the people I'd lost along the way. Isabel, Marks, my own sense of justice, none of that was going to be for nothing. This does end, I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. Whether you want it to or not. I could see my father's eyes flicker, just for a moment. There was a hint of something there, a deep regret, perhaps, before the cold mask returned. You don't understand, Carter. You never have, he said, his voice flat. I didn't have a choice. This was the only way. The pain in his voice was real. It was the voice of a man who had convinced himself that his actions were justified. But that didn't matter anymore. The lies were too great. The truth had to be exposed no matter the cost. Suddenly, a sharp sound broke the tension, a loud bang, followed by the hiss of the mansion's heavy steel doors slamming shut. The room went dark for a split second, and then emergency lights flickered on. What the hell? Marks shouted, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. Isabel spun around, her face frozen in shock. This wasn't part of the plan. I didn't turn. My attention was still fixed on my father, but something in my gut told me something was about to shift. A low rumbling sound echoed through the walls of the mansion, followed by a series of mechanical clicks. The door at the far end of the room slowly opened, revealing a figure I didn't recognize. He was tall, wearing a dark suit, his face obscured by a mask that reflected the dim light around us. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. The masked man took a step forward. "Your father made the wrong decision, Carter." His voice was distorted, almost artificial. "And now, we have come to correct it." My father's eyes widened in recognition. "No, you promised me." "You should have known better than to trust us, Miles," the man said coldly. "You were always a pawn." You just didn't see it until it was too late. Suddenly, everything clicked. The Ashen Order was bigger than Graves, bigger than my father. It wasn't just a shadow organization, it was a network that stretched beyond what I had imagined, a network that controlled even the very people I thought I could trust. "Move!" I shouted, pulling my father to the ground as a gunshot rang out. The masked figure fired a round, missing me by mere inches. I rolled to the side, quickly gaining my feet. Isabel and Marks were already moving, taking cover and drawing their weapons. "Who the hell are these people?" Marks yelled, returning fire. "They're not just with Graves," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "They're above him. We've been chasing the wrong people this whole time." The masked man stepped forward, revealing more of his face. A familiar face. One I hadn't seen in years. My heart skipped a beat. Ronan. The name came out like a curse. Ronan was my father's most trusted ally, a man who had been at the heart of the Ashen Order for as long as I could remember. And yet there he was, standing before me like an executioner with no remorse. "This is a family matter, Carter," Ronan said, his eyes locked on me. "You should have stayed out of it. But now, you'll see the price for your curiosity." My father looked up at Ronan, his face pale, the regret in his eyes undeniable. "Ronan, Save your breath, Miles. You've failed." Ronan turned to me. "And now you'll join him in his failure." In an instant, the air was filled with the deafening sound of gunfire. I ducked, feeling a bullet graze my shoulder, but the pain was nothing compared to the realization that I had underestimated everything. There were more of them. More than I could fight alone. The mansion's corridors stretched endlessly before us, an intricate maze designed to confuse and disorient. The sound of gunfire echoed behind us as Ronan's men pursued relentlessly. My mind raced. There was no way out, not unless we found something Graves hadn't planned for. Marks gritted his teeth as he covered our retreat, firing blindly down the hallway. "We can't keep running, Carter. We need a plan." I scanned the hallway. The paintings lining the walls, the marble flooring, the elegant chandeliers. This house was designed to be both a fortress and a trap. But every fortress had its weak point. "The wine cellar," I muttered, grabbing Isabel's wrist and pulling her toward a side door. "It leads to the old escape tunnels." My father, still dazed from the revelation of Ronan's betrayal, barely kept up. "You knew about those?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I shot him a look. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your secret passages growing up?" Marks smirked. "Remind me to never let you near my house." We barreled through the door, slamming it shut behind us. The cool, damp air of the wine cellar wrapped around us as we descended the stone steps. I could hear the pounding of boots above growing closer. I turned to my father. "How do we get to the tunnels?" He hesitated. "We don't have time for this," Isabel snapped. "They'll be here in seconds." My father exhaled sharply and moved toward one of the racks of expensive bottles. He pulled down a dusty bottle of Chateau Margaux. With a soft click, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark tunnel. "No alarms?" Marks asked, eyes narrowed. "This was built for discretion," my father muttered. "Lucky for us." I pushed him inside first, followed by Isabel and Marks. I turned just in time to see the cellar door burst open. Ronan's men flooded in, their guns raised. I dove into the tunnel and slammed the hidden door shut behind me. The sound of bullets tearing into the stone sent vibrations through my chest. "We have to keep moving," I urged, leading them deeper into the tunnel. Isabel pulled out her flashlight, illuminating the damp stone walls. "Where does this lead?" "An old passage beneath the estate," my father answered. "It was used by bootleggers in the 1920s. Mark snorted. "So the criminal history runs in the family." I ignored the jab, focusing on the path ahead. My mind was still spinning. My father had been a part of the order for decades, but now he was just as much of a target as I was. Ronan had outplayed him. And now, we were all running for our lives. Chapter 28. Ghosts of the past. We ran for what felt like hours, the air growing thick with dust and history. The tunnel eventually opened up into a hidden chamber, a place filled with old crates, relics of a time long gone. "This is as far as it goes," my father admitted. I clenched my jaw. "Then we make our stand here." Isabel checked her gun. "We're low on ammo." Marks let out a breath. "And outnumbered." I turned to my father. "Do you still have any contacts left? Anyone who might help us?" He hesitated. "Dad," I pressed, "if you have anything left, now's the time." His eyes darkened. "There's one man, but if we go to him, there's no turning back." "Who is he?" My father sighed. "Alexander Calloway." Marks stiffened. "The arms dealer?" "Ex-arms dealer," my father corrected. "He's been underground for years, but he hates the order more than anyone. If we reach him, we might have a shot at taking them down." I exchanged glances with Isabel and Marks. It was risky. Calloway wasn't the kind of man who helped others for free. But right now, he was our only hope. I nodded. "Then we find him." My father's gaze lingered on me. "You realize what this means?" "I do," I said. "We're not just running anymore. We're going to end this." A shadow crossed his face, but he didn't argue. Behind us, the distant echo of footsteps grew louder. The chase wasn't over, but neither was the fight. The tunnel exit was hidden behind an overgrown iron gate, rusted with age. We emerged into the biting night air, the scent of rain thick in the atmosphere. The mansion loomed in the distance, now crawling with Ronan's men. They would realize we were gone soon, if they hadn't already. Marks exhaled. "All right, genius. Where do we find Calloway?" My father adjusted his coat. "Last I heard, he operates out of a safe house near the docks." "That's a death trap," Isabel said. "The docks are one of the Order's main supply routes. If Ronan's involved, they'll be watching it." I ran a hand through my hair. She wasn't wrong, but we had no choice. I turned to Marks. "Do you still have that contact in the feds? Someone who can wipe a few security cameras if needed?" Marks grinned. "You do pay attention." He pulled out his phone and tapped a quick message. "Might take some convincing, but I can get us a clean route for a couple of hours." "We won't need more than that," I said, hoping I was right. My father was quiet as we walked. When we reached an old abandoned lot, we found a stolen Seddon Marks had stashed earlier, always a man prepared. We piled in, and I drove, the night stretching ahead of us in silence. After a while, my father finally spoke. "Carter, back in that mansion, you almost pulled the trigger on me." I gripped the wheel tighter, my jaw locking. "Yeah." "I don't blame you," he admitted, his voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. "I just need to know, when this is over, do you see me as an enemy or as your father?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Depends. When this is over, will you have earned being my father again?" He didn't answer. Chapter 30. The Price of Loyalty. The docks were quiet at this hour, but quiet never meant safe. The old warehouse Calloway supposedly stood at the edge of the pier, its towering structure casting long shadows in the moonlight. Marks nudged me. "We go in quiet?" Isabel checked her gun. "We go in smart." We moved in, careful and calculated. I approached the door first, knocking twice, pausing then once more, a pattern I remembered from my childhood, one my father had used when meeting people he didn't fully trust. A small slot in the door slid open, revealing a pair of sharp, calculating eyes. Then, a voice. "Didn't expect to see you again, Miles." The door creaked open, and there stood Alexander Calloway. The years had weathered him, but the danger in his eyes remained sharp as ever. He scanned our group, his gaze lingering on me. "And you must be Carter?" I gave a slow nod. "We need your help," Calloway smirked. "That's funny. Last time your father and I spoke, he said he never wanted to see me again." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Things have changed." Calloway studied him for a moment before stepping aside. "Then come in. But be warned. Whatever you think you know about the Order, you're still only scratching the surface." Chapter 31. The final move inside. Calloway's safe house was filled with maps, weapons, and stacks of files, information he had been gathering for years. He poured himself a drink. "Ronan finally made his move, didn't he?" I nodded. "He outplayed my father, and now he's running the show." Calloway let out a dark chuckle. "I warned you, Miles. The Order was never yours to control. You were just another piece on the board." My father clenched his fists but said nothing. I stepped forward. "We want to take the Order down. You've been watching them for years. Tell us what we're missing." Calloway took a slow sip of his drink. "The Order isn't just Ronan. It's bigger than him. Bigger than your father. It runs through the government, the banks, the corporations. You don't kill something like that, you dismantle it from within." Marks crossed his arms. "Sounds like a long shot." Calloway's eyes darkened. "It is. But there's one way to shake the foundation." He set a file down on the table. I opened it. Inside were names, dates, transactions, evidence linking the Order to some of the most powerful figures in the country. "This," Calloway said, "is what Ronan doesn't want you to find." I looked at my team. Isabel gave a small nod. Marks exhaled but didn't argue. Even my father seemed to recognize the weight of this moment. I closed the file. "This ends now."